Dandvaititam gagana sadrasham tatmama shadi laksham. Ekam nityam pimalamachalam. Savardi sarvadi sakshibhutam. Bhavatitam triguna rahitam. Sadgurum tanamami. Om Shantihi, Shantihi, Shantihi. We salute the leader of our souls, by whose grace our ignorance is dispelled, who is beyond good and bad, life and death, virtue and vice, and all other pairs of opposites. We recognize that one as the only witness to the changing phenomena of this universe. May we, through that grace, go beyond darkness and delusion and realize the truth in this very life. Om peace, peace, peace. Om nicho nichanam chetanas chetananam. Eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. Tamatmastam yen upashanti dhiraha. Tesham shanti shashvati netaresham. Om shantihi, shantihi, shantihi. That one, the eternal among non-eternal things, the intelligence of the most intelligent ones, who, though ever one, nevertheless fulfills the desires of the many. That one, the wise ones realize as dwelling in their very self. To them belong peace and to none else. Om peace, peace, peace. And there shines Brahman. May that Brahman protect us. May that Brahman sustain us. And may that Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat. So welcome all to this second Sunday class of our three-class series on the Yogachudamani Upanisad. Some of you may remember that there's a great scripture in our tradition by Shankara, a non-dualist, wrote a great scripture called the Yogachudamani. So that word Chudamani is familiar to us who study Indian scriptures. It's always used to mean a crown. So last week, as you know, the shipping people let me down, didn't get my ink cartridge to me in time. What else is new, right? So this week I was able to print it out for you. And that's this main chart. I try and create at least one chart for every class series and 2 or 3 for every seminar, and a couple new ones for every retreat we do, which go on all year with SRV associations. So welcome into that atmosphere. And with this new chart called the Yogachudamani Upanisad, we find that one of these 108 Upanishads has a very close relationship with yoga. And then further looking into it, as I was explaining before class started to our new guests here, is that it also has a very close relationship with Kundalini yoga. So yoga is, of course, a very universal word used in many ways for different darshanas or different levels and approaches to divine reality. That divine reality is called Brahman in our tradition. And yoga is the fact that we're already in union with it, that we can never not be in union with it, and there'll never come a time when we're not in union with it. But of course, this dream called birth, life, death, and rebirth is causing people to think differently. causing them to think they're separate from the Lord, from God, from Brahman, from the Divine Mother, Kundalini herself. And in that way, they fall into what's called in our tradition vivarta, or false superposition. You're one with that Brahman, but you've dropped a veil in front of it, of the truth of that. So Vedanta is very powerful in its approach to state that great sayings like that thou art, tatvamasi in Sanskrit, or aham brahmasmi, I am Brahman, this self is Brahman, in Sanskrit, aham brahmasmi. So those great sayings of India are the Advaitic or non-dual backdrop to great traditions like yoga, Vedanta, Samkhya, Kundalini, and Vaisheshika, and two other orthodox philosophies, and the non-orthodox philosophies too in India. Buddhism is one of those, and Jainism is another. So you have this whole plethora of great paths in India that people are choosing from time out of mind that keep surfacing. They've even come west now. In fact, the V in our SRV association is to declare that Swami Vivekananda has been here on our very continent of America when he came to the Parliament of Religions in 1893 and caused such a big stir there with his message of non-duality. And also brought the first authentic yoga to us in 1893. That's called Raja Yoga. He probably did that because he knew that since there were a lot of materialists in the West and a lot of people who were body-oriented, and in India, they've always been pretty much the opposite. They've been spiritually oriented, and they've been oriented more toward the soul, what they call Atman there. And so then he wanted to bring something that was pure and Advaitic or non-dual. Because back then when he arrived in the scene, he saw people giving seances in their living rooms. This was like late 1800s. They're trying to reach departed spirits, or they were holding big top revivals, the Christians and so forth. So he didn't see anything of that high philosophical nature going on, which declared that I and my Father are one, if you want to put it the way Jesus put it. So that is at the very foundation of Vedanta. That is, the Upanishad's main message is Brahman is one, indivisible, and thou art that. There can't be any second to Brahman. It's always one and indivisible. How to reach it then when people have fallen away from that oneness and started to think in terms of not only two-ness, but manyness. Not just unity, but diversity comes into the play. In India, of course, we call that Brahman, and it's Maya. You've heard the four-letter word Maya, and you know that pretty much drops a veil in front of people, keeps them from realizing their oneness with Brahman. So Yogachudamani Upanishad is one of the efforts by these rishis. Rishis is a seer of truth who thousands of years before the Christian era, thousands of years, Rig Veda, probably Karma dated a good or 10,000 years prior to Christianity. So you have the Rig Veda and its collection of Upanishads, and you have the Sama Veda and its collection of Upanishads. This is one of those out of the Sama Veda. So coming forward to say that this crest jewel of yoga needs to be talked about in Vedantic terms. And so we looked at that last week, and I'm not going to do a big review of it, of what we did last week. Could read the slokas so that put us in the atmosphere of what the rishis of the Yogachudamani Upanishad are trying to teach us. Enough to say, though, that Chudamani means crown. So a crown always has jewels. And when they're putting together an Upanishad like this, they want us to know that there are certain jewels in the crown that are foremost. And you can see them there across the top of the chart. Some of you are familiar with all of them. A few of you are familiar with some of them. Probably this prana, one of the things Swami Vivekananda said when he arrived in the West, said, oh, I see they don't know anything about prana. We should teach them about that. So it means that you don't live by bread alone, as Jesus said. You live by this life force. Everyone's after this life force. It's the life force and things that make them desirable. And that's an unseen thing. Like, how do the eyes see? How do the ears hear? How do we breathe? Breath is one of the great connections to pranayam, and in the 8 limbs of yoga. And what makes us move? What animates us? And what digests our food? All of these are sort of taken for granted. It's a good expression in the West. So you could, if you were a teacher, Buddhist or a meditation teacher, so forth, you'd take a person, you'd say, stop everything, sit. And so they'd sit still. That's asana. And then you'd ask them not to think. Try not to think your thoughts anymore. Empty your mind, right? And then when you have them there and you have their full attention, you say, what's happening now? And they say, nothing. Oh, really? What about your breath? You see, aren't you breathing? And haven't you breathed today 120,100 times you've breathed in and out. Sa, sa, ha, sa, ha, sa, ha, sa. It's called Hamsa mantra. So you're doing a mantra, and that's one of the other jewels here on the crown, right? After the prana, you have the mantra. So mantra is usually something you go to a teacher to get, and he'll give you some sort of a very powerful, short, terse, and potent 3 or 4 syllable mantra, like Om Namah Shivaya if you're a worshiper of Shiva, or if you're Dalai Lama, Om Mani Padme Hum. They have different mantras. They all begin with this word Om. And that's one of the things we're going to look at today. You might say the name of today's class could be Om Kundalini, because we looked at prana and mantra last week. So that's why I'm not going to review it, but I will quickly read you the scriptures, because somebody even asked if I could. So they start out this Upanishad, that is the rishis. Well, they start out Om Apiyantu, Pranaschakshu, Shrotamatra, Balamindriyani. They start out with one of the great peace chants. It says, it shows you how universal they were in ancient India. May our bodies have great health. May our life force, this prana that we have to learn about, that connects to our breath, it's not the breath, but connects to it. May our prana flow unimpeded, see? And may our minds expand in their capacity to know Brahman, the reality. So that's the first thing they say. Is one of these 7 peace chants. They start off every Upanishad with that, to reacquaint us with the fact that we need to keep our mind focused on the purpose of human existence, which is not money, family, food, excitement, lands, wealth, on, which everyone is worshiping here, but something that's very unseen. So as I was just saying about the man sitting, the guru saying what's happening, and the man saying nothing, then the guru is going to say, no, you're breathing. So this is the most subtle thing of all that we can most easily detect. Hiding in plain sight is the expression they use, is this prana. Everything is a manifestation or expression of this prana, and this prana belongs to her. So 2 things we don't know. First, that there's a life force that's afoot. You see, it's causing everything to move, to see, to think, to act, and so forth. And that we can connect it to Shakti or Shaktiman. You see, there's a power it connects to. In the Upanishads, they use the idea of spider web and the spider. So it's got this beautiful web. A couple of days last week ago until till I went out and ruined it for the poor spider. It was a huge spider on my window, so I decided to displace him, move him somewhere else. But he had made this beautiful web that covered my whole bathroom window. And so I was reminded of the Upanishad teaching the spider how she's there, and then every strand of the web connects to something. And if anything moves, she'll know it right away, you see. And so that's the analogy they're using for Mother Kundalini. Her web are, depending on which Upanishad you read, 450,000 strands, or sometimes more. Strands are nadis. Nadis connect to chakras, you see. So if you're working on your chakras, as sometimes we hear said, then you're going to want to know that there are passageways leading to them, just like there are many roads to get into New York and into other cities by. These are like physical nadis. We were on the Columbia River Gorge a couple of weeks ago giving a retreat, and many rivers were feeding that, and that river was feeding the ocean. So we see these channels moving various things, sometimes moving water, sometimes moving air currents, but inside of and sometimes moving nutrients through our bloodstream. But the most subtle of all of this, if we want to get a hold of the pranas, are these nadis. So hundreds and thousands of these nadis compose your subtle body. So we know that there are also thousands of nadis that compose your physical body. Take them out, tie them all together, they'll reach from here to New York, evidently. So there's so many nerves and different kinds of tendrils, physical channels that are flowing. And in all of them, the Upanishad says this prana moves. So it's one of those things that we see the effect of, but we don't see the thing itself. But the yogis can see the thing itself. So they'll do that through meditation. And as I just used in my analogy, when you ask a still person what's happening, said nothing. No, you're breathing. Now I want you to focus on that breath. And think first that before I ask you to focus on the breath, you had breathed 21,100 times, or 21,099 times today before you took this breath that I ask you to be aware of. Oh, now I'm aware of my breath. So from that moment, I am aware that there's a force called prana flowing through me. And now I need to follow it into its source. And so through the practice of what they call pranayam, which is the fourth limb of yoga, right? First you have yamas and yamas, then you have sitting, and then you have pranayam. Pranayam is the fourth limb of yoga. And the fifth limb of yoga is controlling your mind. So you can't control your mind until you found the prana and control the prana that's causing your mind to think. And you can't do that until you be able to sit still. And you can't do that until you've satisfied nonviolence, truthfulness, non-covetousness, moderation of sensual appetites, all the 5 yamas and the 5 niyamas. So all of this is what's called yoga, Raja Yoga. It has 8 limbs. If you went beyond pratyahara, you'd go to, oh, I can concentrate now. And if you went beyond that, now I can meditate. And if you went beyond that, you have samadhi, a very esoteric word in itself, also called nirvana in Buddhism, or in yoga, in Raja Yoga, called asampragyata. In Zen Buddhism, satori. So all these great traditions and their founders and their teachers know that there's a very high state of awareness in which everything goes away that's impeding your relationship with your divine nature, impeding your relationship with yourself. So to know yourself is very deep in India. Thou shalt know this, the truth, and the truth shall set you free, Jesus said. It's the same in India, only we would put this in cases you should know the self first. So part of that is knowing the non-self. That is, know what you're not. And so a lot of things could be put in that category. I'm not stress. I'm not worry. I'm not suffering. I'm not ignorance. I'm not anger. I'm not lust. I'm not disease. I'm not shame. I'm not grief. These are called the 6 passions, the 8 fetters, the 9 antarayas, and so forth in yoga and Vedanta. So most people fall into the influence of those and they begin to identify with them. But if you can focus your mind away from the non-self, which is also matter, like physical body, flesh, then you're going to use the body as a model for these hundreds and thousands of subtle nerves inside. And you may come to find that when you begin to breathe and get in contact with your breath, that your dreams will become more clear. So that's what the Upanishad's about to tell us. Is in the 3rd part, it's going to talk about the word Om. And they spell that correctly. You see it pronounced Om, O-M, spelled that way. But the real correct spelling is A-U-M. So A in this case would correlate with the in-breath, and U with the held breath, and M with the out-breath. And that would also correlate with your waking state, your dreaming state, and your deep sleep state. So they're beginning to take you inside already. See, what they're actually telling you is your waking state is not the reality. That's only 1/3 of the picture. So if you're living a physical life in matter and with the 5 senses attached to the objects, and you're suffering grief, fear, shame, stress, worry, and all these things, if you assess your life and look at that, then you haven't yet made the connection of your prana that the breath is a sign of to your subtle body. Your subtle body is a mental body, is a dream body. So these nadis, these nerves leading inward to that. So if you do the breathing exercise that they teach you to do in pranayam, there's actually 4 of them in the Upanishad I'm going to show you today, then you'll connect yourself to the life force that will itself then connect you back to the subtle body, and then beyond the subtle body to the causal body. All of this is being presented to us as we course along with the rest of this Upanishad. So now we see the full vision of it here before us. If you want to, before we read these slokas, look at these 7 chakras here on either side of her body. This Muladhara is at the base, and then Svadhisthana at the organs of generation, and the Manipura is at the navel. And of course, we're using the body just as a way of explaining. They're not actually in the body. They're in your subtle body, in your mind. The chakras are not in your physical body. That's a misnomer, and people aren't correcting that teaching so that people come to think that, oh, maybe my body is where the chakras are. But no, they're inside of your consciousness. And your body is also inside of your consciousness. So it's just a model that you use. So those 3 chakras, Muladhara, Svadhisthana, and Manipura, are the 3 worlds in which people are born, live, die, and get reborn. See, that's how the Indian rishis put it. So if you want to know where people go when they die or where babies come from, we haven't figured that out yet in the West. India has known this for thousands of years because they know the nadis and the chakras. If you become to know the nadis and the chakras and the prana that flows between them in accordance with your 3 subtle bodies, which also correlate with A, U, and M, A for the gross body, U for the mental body, M for the subtle body, deep sleep it's called, then you begin to know how souls transmigrate and how they come back and how they leave. That's why I brought this chart maybe to look at. We're not going to look at it yet, but prana and the illusion of death is what it's called. So getting a hold of the reins of prana then, If you see a chariot, and then you see Arjuna in the chariot, and you see Krishna holding the reins and so forth, then you see that there's this connection, and the reins are indicative of this life force. They all connect to my senses, and my senses connect to the 5 elements. How does that work? My hearing connects to ether. My sense of touch connects to the air. See, and my sense of seeing connects to fire. My sense of smelling, of tasting connects to water. My sense of smell connects to earth. See, directly across the board. Earth with smelling, water with tasting, fire with seeing, air with feeling, and ether with touch. I'm sorry, ether with sound, So these are called 10 of the senses and 10 elements. They're connected. We don't usually learn it that way. They're all disparate. They're all unconnected. Oh, now I'm going to swim in water. Now I'm going to warm my hands in fire. Now I'm going to breathe air, or not, depending on if I'm aware of breathing. So these are old connections that they've made in India, where the 5 elements and the 5 senses are directly put together with each other. Now you want to know how the connecting happens, and that's where you have to activate life force. You have to wake up Mother Kundalini from the Muladhara chakra. She's sleeping there. Remember how we read it last week then? She's coiled up there at the base of the spine, and she's sleeping on the root chakra, and she's got her mouth over the opening there. And by doing conscious breathing exercises, you strike her with a stick. I was reading another Upanishad about it today, Yogachudamani Upanisad. She's like a serpent sleeping there, so you strike her with a stick. That means with your breathing. And like a snake, she uncoils and hisses, you see. And then she moves up the spine, up the Sushumna, that is the subtle spine, to the crown chakra. Well, the crown chakra is up here, you see, called Sahasrara. And in between there, these 3 worlds, you have the heart chakra, Anahata. You have the throat chakra, Vishuddha, means most pure. And then you have the third eye chakra, Agya. That's known, I found it in 7 different religions of the world. They talk about this chakra. They call it different things. And then you've got the crown chakra, Sahasrara itself. So these are the 7 chakras. You have to know that there are also 7 worlds. There are 7 spiritual vortexes, which billions and billions of souls are visiting when they're in bodies. If they disembody and don't take on bodies of either flesh or thought, because there are thought bodies, you see, then they will merge like a hailstone in an ocean into the ocean of light. This is where people see ocean of light, or they'll hear Shabda Brahma. They'll hear the sound of Om. See, that's why I'm talking in this manner, because Om, A-U-M, is so pertinent to the in-breath, held breath, out-breath, to the gross body, subtle body, causal body, and to the first these chakras, these sets of chakras. So to a soul who already knows this, like let's say Lord Buddha, or let's say Swami Vivekananda, who brought this teaching to us in 1893, then they'll be born aware of this already. And then they can come to our country and they can share it with us. So we find it amazing that, how do you know all this? Well, I knew it before I was born, you see, which means I learned it in another lifetime. And when I learned it well in another lifetime, I didn't have to take birth anymore, unless I chose to take birth. Well, this is what the Tibetan Buddhists are teaching us lately. Dalai Lama, Karmapa, Kali Rinpoche, Jangon Kamtru Rinpoche, my teacher. Basically, they're teaching you about the arts of the illusion of death. The soul cannot die because it was never born. You cannot create the soul. It is. That means you are, because you're the soul. So you have no birth, life, and death at all. You just have eternal life. And that's what Jesus was trying to teach to his apostles. Come with me and I'll teach you eternal life, because you don't realize your eternal life yet. You only realize your life of rivers, nets, fish, wives, huts. Leave all that behind. Come with me. I'll make you fishers of men, he said. I remember playing with Dave Brubeck as a musician, a jazz musician in his time. He wrote a big opera about Judas and Jesus and the fishers of men. I can still hear it, the choir sing it in my ears. Fishers of men, follow me. Fishers of men, follow me. And he was Jewish. So basically you have this, in all religions, you have this knowledge that comes to you of a very high level of mind, which is beyond the mundane. It transcends the superficial. It's transcendent of anything material. And it even goes beyond the senses, like in your dreams tonight. And when you go into dream, a lot of people don't know this, but that's where heaven is. I heard somebody say something funny the other day. They heard a preacher preaching to a group of people in a village. And the preacher was saying, we want the military to stop these missiles, shooting them up into space, because they're going to destroy heaven. So I found it funny that some people were still so superstitious as to think that heaven was up in the sky. See? I mean, Christ even made it very clear that the kingdom of heaven is within you. So this is what India is talking about. Basically, the kingdom of heaven is in the chakras. It's in them, and the nadis are passageways that lead to them. And when you so-called die, you just drop the physical body, you go along these nadis, and you enter into that dream life. Whatever life there is, at whatever level of consciousness you've been able to attain, opens up to you through these nadis. I probably could end the class right now and just leave it at that. You know, basically, if you understand that much, then you understand a lot of the jewels in her crown already. You understand that prana has to flow. You have to be conscious of it, and you have to take it inward towards her. And that as you do, you encounter certain powerful words like mantras that you will be able to say that will open up doors. It's like Christ saying, knock and it shall be answered, right? You say, well, where is that? You have to take a rocket ship up in space and knock on God's door at some celestial palace in the physical universe? Or do I go inside and I find Jesus or Buddha or Krishna or whoever I love and you say, here's the key. So this is what the Upanisad said. These are keys. Similar to opening the doors of a house by using a key, the yogi should open the gate of salvation and liberation using Kundalini. That was the last sloka we took last week, 39. So I'll read you the first 38. I will tell you the the Yogachudamani Upanisad with a view to do you good. It's appreciated by all mature souls who know yoga. It's a secret that's capable of giving you liberation. Sloka 1. Then 2 through 29, not available. Or so old they lost out. They lost some of these slokas over age. But picking it up at 30, it says, the jivatman, that's the embodied soul. You see, that's your body-mind complex, the jivatma, is under the control of prana. You know, just saying, you should know this, that all these things here, everything is under the control of prana. That's what's pulling the strings. You think you're pulling the strings. Your ego thinks, I do, I grasp, I eat, I know. But the ego itself cannot act without prana. So you haven't gone deep enough into the source yet to find out who's pulling the strings, even of your small self, your ego. That's why Buddha said, there are two selves here, the small self and the great self. You should realize the great self and dissolve the small self into the great self. He was quoting the Upanishads when he said that. So further, if you're under the control of prana, then the first thing you want to know that is that prana and apana are happening. You're breathing out and you're breathing in. Your breathing out is being pushed out of you with the sound ha. And you're pulling it, the apana is pulling it back in with the sound sa. So hum, sa, hum, sa, hum, sa. There's the hamsa. You see, we'll yet have to get to that. Falling down on us. There's the great swan out of the Nada Bindu Upanishad. There's a swan in the middle. Everything is symbolized by certain things on the swan. We don't want to digress yet, but basically, this is what the word hamsa means. It's the great swan. So that's also the name of the mantra you breathe all the time. So just like you ask people, now that you've stopped acting, what's happening? And they say nothing, and you say wrong. Prana's happening. Your breathing is happening. You can say the same thing about this mantra. Do you do the mantra? No, I've never got a mantra. Wrong. You do 128,100 mantras every day without knowing it, by breathing out, breathing in. And you're saying ha, sa, ham, sa, ham, sa. And the Upanishad is telling you here is that the prana is pushing that out and the apana is pulling that back in. So prana and apana are two forms of 5 forms of prana. There's a prana that evacuates your waste. There's a prana that causes you to breathe in and out, and a prana and apana. There's a prana that circulates your blood through your physical nerves, nadis. And there's a prana that's just there all the time and doesn't move, like the ether. Those are the 5 kinds of one prana in 5 forms, Vivekananda called it. So this is the first thing you come up to, you see. Basically, you say, well, are we going to do any exercise today? Let's see. Well, I could show you the 4 kinds of breathing. In fact, I'll maybe get to them today and show you what they're like. But you need to have a teacher, the Upanishad says, to show you how to do it and watch you as you do it for a while. Because prana is the most volatile substance in the universe. When it's out of control, you've got warmongers doing bad acts through prana. When it's in control, you've got seers helping people to get free through prana. That same prana, can cook your food or burn you, cause you to cook your food or cause you to burn yourself. That life force makes no never mind about morality or ethics. It's just a force that's there. But the yogi, the Upanishad is saying here, is going to use it to do good to others and to the self. It's going to use it to open up channels inside that 7 billion people living here at the level of the Muladhara chakra do not know anything about right now. Talk about a great secret. I call this the second greatest secret of India. And what's the first? Her. They don't know her yet. They don't know the Divine Mother. She is so subtle and so hidden. She's subtler than the prana. So we're going to have to take the prana, which is her external body, just like we have an internal and external body. And we're going to have to take that prana and connect it back inside of ourselves till we see her. And she see that breathing out and breathing in is not done by me anymore. It's done by her. The yogi saying, she causes me to breathe and to withdraw my breath, hold my breath and expel my breath. She causes me to raise my arm. She causes me to see. She causes me to hear. She causes me to act. All work belongs to her, but others only call it their own. You see? So everything is done by her. And yes, all negative things happen too, because she allows them. This is the transcendent reality that sometimes they talk about, that saying, nobody knows the will of God. Well, so billions of people can go to death by the acts of an evil person doing evil acts and killing people. But how can you go to death when there is no death? You're just going to open a door inside and going to another realm. And then if you take a physical birth, you just come back out again and take a physical birth. Here I am again, folks. So Krishna says this in the Gita. He says, Arjuna, he says to his disciple, realized souls take on and put off bodies like a child outgrows sets of clothes. So your incarnation here in this body, you've lived many times before. And so now you've taken another body. All of this round of birth and death is for one purpose only, is to realize that you are the author of it. You're the author of birth and death and life and rebirth. And more importantly, that if you don't like it, you can stop it. You can stop being born. This is India's great message that you don't find in any other religion. As far as I'm concerned, all the other religions want you either to continue taking births and enjoying life, or go to heaven or paradise. India doesn't like any of those as the ultimate goal. It wants you beyond and master of life and death. So then, as the Tibetans again have been teaching us, do not project your body anymore in space and time. This is going to be possible if you control the prana, because the prana is out of control in unconscious souls, and they're selecting parents and they're projecting themselves into the bodies of the parents, getting their own physical body, living another 80 or 100 years in the physical body without knowing about the prana, dying because the prana ceases. You see, if the prana goes out of your body, you can't see anymore. You can't hear, you can't taste, you can't smell. And this is why when you're passing away, you feel unstable because you're giving up earth. You feel dry mouth because you're giving up water. You feel like you're being snuffed out because you're giving up fire. And you feel like you can't breathe because you're giving up air. And you feel like you have nowhere to go because you're giving up ether. So those 5 elements that you took on to get into the body through the 5 senses are having to be given away one by one as you die, as you so-called die. But if you know the prana, the 5 forms of prana, then you can do this all consciously. And when the conscious act is done, you can say, no more birth in the realm of matter for me. Only emanation from my Divine Mother. I'll never take birth in matter again. I'll only be a sunbeam from her, coming and going back to her, coming and going back to her. And there will be no birth and no death for me. There'll be no life for me, only eternal life. So because of this pushing and pulling of prana and apana, beings go on chanting this 21,100 times a day. I've read some teachers are teaching twice that at night, that because you go into deep sleep, your breathing almost stops for periods of time. So 128,000 could be at night, could be 260 some thousand in the day. So anyway, I've heard variations on this, but this is the ancient wisdom. This mantra that you're breathing constantly is called Ajapa. I mean, japa means that I'm saying my mantra over on my beads, right? Or on my fingers. That's japa mantra, but Ajapa doesn't have any words, any beads, or any fingers. It's happening all the time spontaneously. And you need to become aware of this. Why? Because there are no practices as holy as this. No chanting which is equivalent to this. No wisdom equivalent to it. There will be none in the future either. This mantra which rises comes from her, the Kundalini Shakti, and it supports the soul. This is the greatest of the sciences of soul. That one who knows this will know the Vedas and will know yoga. And so then they sing about it even. That is the Kundalini Shakti. Sarvagyana Shakti Mahakundalini Jivatman Paramatmadharini Shri Devi Rudrani Kalaratri Devi Vijaya Devi Maheshani Shri Yogamai Chit Shakti Devi Jaya Vijaya Devi Vasundari Shri Mantra Shakti Mata Deva Devi Dasa Tattva Devi Shakti Dharani Shri Devi Padam Shri Devi Padam Shri Devi Padam Shri Devi Padam. And more verses like that come flowing out of these rishis who love to sing about her once they find her. Where? Inside of them. How? Through tracing the prana back to her. All the prana extends from her, like Upanishad says, it's like a shadow of a man when the sun's overhead. You see, that's what the prana comes from the Atman, like a shadow that comes out from the reflection of the light upon that soul. So the prana will naturally come out and express itself in so many different ways. Trees are growing, rivers are flowing, air currents are blowing, people are acting, and people are breathing. And when they breathe, then the Upanishad says that's happening first. Prana is primarily at the source of everything. Like I just said, it's if you go to heaven and then come back to earth, it's because you're after the prana. And those people who don't attain the prana, they use the things that prana gives them. Those people who attain to the prana, they use the prana to get beyond what the prana can give and find her. You see, that's realization or liberation. They call that moksha, mukti, kaivalya, nirvana, samadhi. There's so many beautiful words for that in India. So we went that far, and then there were a couple more slokas. The Kundalini power is above the Muladhara. Quick, where's the Muladhara? Down here, first chakra. That's where I was saying transmigrating souls are going through these three worlds. They're coming back to earth, taking on bodies through parents, dying at the end of their lives, and going back to other chakras. Then they're coming back again. And now you know how, through these subtle nerves. They're not going up to heaven because it's not up there. They're not going down to hell because there's no such thing. They're going inward to the chakras. It's that simple. They're called lotuses, called spiritual vortexes. They're called the kings of heaven within. There's so many ways in which they're being pointed at. Well, why don't we just stand up and confirm the fact for ourselves? I never die. I just move in and out like my breath, right? I never stop breathing. I'm always breathing, even in deep sleep. Although it ceases for a minute, then I kick in again. You're laying in someone next to you, sleeping next to someone. If you're awake at night, you hear them breathing go away. See, are they dying on me? See, then all of a sudden, a few minutes later, like aqualung, you see, sa, ha, sa. The prana comes back to them. Their consciousness uses the prana to get back into their body. These are unseen dynamics, but this is what's happening that you can't see, that you ought to be able to see with this. See, you might not be able to see it with this, so you don't believe it, because seeing is believing, right? But no, you should be able to see it with this eye, with the third eye. See, Krishna says in the Gita, people don't see me as I come and go, like through the prana. But those who've opened this eye see me. They see me come at the time of birth. They see me go away at the time of death. And they know that I'm there beyond life and death too. See, that's the Supreme Lord and his Shakti, his Divine Mother. So I didn't get very far, did I? The Kundalini power is above the Muladhara in its 8-studded form. And I say what? They've taught that forever, the Grostica body, basically 5 elements and threefold mind. 8-studded form. And it's always covering the mouth of the Sushumna, which is the gate to Brahman. The mouth of the Sushumna is the base of the spine at the Muladhara. It's like something that's being covered there by ignorance. That's why people aren't awaking up to this wisdom and becoming free. They pretend to be bound. They prefer to be bound. They want to dream. They don't want to awaken. We know this about people. But if you awaken to your spiritual life and truth, then you get bliss. If you don't awaken to it, then you get happiness mixed in with sorrow. You see? So the plight of people in the world is a round of happiness and sorrow, joy and misery all the time. Kala chakra, the Buddha called that, the wheel of birth and death. It doesn't just happen in one lifetime, but there are many lifetimes. But the situation of the realized souls is different. They open up that nadi, and we'll go on with that. This Kundalini, Parameshvari, the Rishi calls her now by the word goddess of the universe. Parameshvari means the goddess of all the worlds. Wants to go through the diseaseless gate of Brahman, but she closes this gate with her mouth and sleeps. So open that orifice, and with the breathing exercise, break through there. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, but do it consciously. Find a teacher that shows you how to do the 4 kinds of breathing exercises that will help you. So wake her up. So the yogi starts to do practice. Because of the heat generated by the yogi's practice, that's called tapas, right? If you do tapas, heat. If you do this a lot, arm gets hot. See, if you think a lot, your mind gets hot. If you run, your body gets hot. So if you do spiritual practice, your interior body gets hot. And it begins to burn away impurities in the nadis. So now you're not under the control of blockages in the nadis anymore. You can break through them with your control of breath and thought. Because of the heat generated by his or her practice, because of the speed of the wind, that's this prana, it's so fast, and because of her mental power, if she awakens and she wants to do something, that's Icha Shakti. That Icha Shakti is contained in the chakras. So is Jnana Shakti and her wisdom, and so is Kriya Shakti, her actions. These are 3 of her powers. So because of those 3 things, the heat of your practice, the speed of the prana when it's awakened, and her mental power, she stands up and uses her needle-shaped body to go through the Sushumna to the crown. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, esoteric way of putting it even in English. I mean, this was originally in Sanskrit, but if you put it into English, it still carries with it that power to inspire, you see, in words. It means I want to have that experience. See, give me a teacher, give me a mantra, show me the method. I'll start practicing because I want her to do that inside of me. I want to know myself as her. I want to be hers. The Tantrasists call that saham. The Advaitists say aham brahmasmi, I am that. But the Tantrasists say saham, I belong to her. Either way, you've got a good master, either the formless Brahman or the divine Shakti. They're both one anyway. So that's a very potent sloka. By practice of your yoga, the speed of which the wind rises, like from nowhere, like a hurricane, calm day, all of a sudden, whoosh, so that prana starts blowing, and her desire that you awaken, her will. She rises up and using her needle-like body, pierces all the granthis. That actually comes later. Pierces the 3 granthis. There's one at the base of the spine, there's one between the navel and the heart, and there's one between the third eye and the crown. Granthi means knot in English. So this is why people are not waking up and becoming illumined souls, and why they have to reincarnate and go back to physical bodies in ignorance and suffer. The whole cure to suffering is here in the first few slokas. Awaken your prana, connect it to her by doing some practice, and be free, basically is it. Awaken and be free. And then we ended last week's class by saying, similar to opening the doors of the house by using the key, the yogi should open these gates, 7, to salvation using Kundalini power, Kundalini Shakti. So this is what we read last week. And before we go on to the next part, the next few slokas in our remaining time, let's take stock here. The top quote says, from Parabrahma, that's supreme reality, arises Parashakti. She is the soul, self-resplendent. From her arises ether, wind, fire, water, and earth, the 5 elements, each with their respective deities. So that's coming up. That's why I'm reading it in advance here. When you have the 5 elements and they connect to the 5 senses, then you're also going to find that there are 5 deities involved with that. They're her lesser gods, lesser goddesses, you see. She's the supreme, and then these are her attendants that help do things. The prana is definitely one of her attendants. There are things called prana chaktis that are minor deities. Again, one of the dangers of following a religion or a path that overlooks the deities. In Vedanta, we like the blend of upasana with vipassana. So many people are going just to vipassana. You see, just empty meditation, nothing. I don't want forms. I don't want mantras. I don't want names. I don't want practices. I don't want rituals. I don't want deities. It's sort of like a difference between the Catholics and the Protestants in a way. But here in India, say, well, so the Tantrasists and some of these higher thinkers say, let's keep the upasana. Let's keep our meditation on the deities, like the god of fire, the god of wind, the god of air, the god of earth, and the goddess of earth. I just chanted her name there, Vasundari is the goddess of earth. So let's keep this worship of the deities because they connect so deeply with the elements. And if we're desecrating the elements and disrespecting, then we're disrespecting the deities, right? So if we're not careful about how we use air, earth, fire, water, and ether, let's call it resources, in today's age, then we're going to piss off the deities. See, and catastrophes are going to come. Nature's going to rise up, shake itself. But we'd rather have Kundalini rise up and shake herself, see, and take us to these inner realms. It doesn't matter what happens to the earth or who does what to who when you find her. You're automatically free of the whole shoot and match. You're one with yourself, where there is no birth, life, death. There is no suffering, no ignorance. There is no torture or torturer. There is no domination or dominator. You've given yourself to the ultimate source of everything, and she levels the playing field. There are two scriptures about her. One's called Srimad Devi Bhagavatam. The other's called Devi Mahatmyam, or also called the Chandi. And in those scriptures, she's leveling the battlefield of negative forces. She does it with words. She thinks a word destroys a demon. She thinks another word destroys a demon. And nobody can match her in prowess as a warrioress. She's the warrior goddess. They call her Durga. Sometimes they call her Durga. Kundalini is another one of her names. Did we take enough of that chart? In 3 weeks, we're going to be able to work through all of this. I've mentioned already last week Hamsa. There's that Hamsa, the great swan, white swan, right there in the diadem at her third eye. And we see that the A, U, and M of Om are incorporated in this chart. We'll come back to those because it's coming up in the next few set of slokas. And we see that each of her earrings are the masculine and feminine force. In India, we call those Shiva and Shakti. They're the only two genders, Shiva and Shakti, male and female. And then there's what's beyond, transcendent. So this is an ancient dynamic in India as proclaimed by what's called Tantra Yoga. So you see here that she holds both there, the divine feminine and the divine masculine within her. And I don't think, I think that's all I want to take of the chart. And we'll look at other entries on it next week. But let's read this next set of slokas so we make some headway into the Yogachudamani Upanisad. Now you've heard 39 slokas. And because of age, 40 through 71, gone. We don't know what happened to them. They couldn't be recovered. So we're jumping to the next sloka that's available to us is 72. And she starts talking then about the word, A-U-M. Parabrahma is Om, so means basically God is Om. You know, you might have heard Christ say, in the beginning was the Word is with God, the Word was God. Well, the subtitle to one of my upcoming retreats is called Before the Beginning Was the Word. So the Word was there, and it's never not there. It's always sounding. They call that Om in our tradition. So then out of Om, the idea of beginnings, middles, and ends happen. I'm sure Jesus knew this. And so the church fathers got it a little confused. So basically, before the beginning was this Om. It sounds all the time. In this Upanishad, or was it in another Upanishad I was reading? I think it's in this Upanishad. It's like the long sound of a bell, which is unending. And its peak, the peak of the sound is Brahman. That's going ahead in the slokas a little bit. Or they sometimes describe the word as being a continuous flow of oil from one beaker to another. See, there's a perfect rainbow arc, as it were, of oil. Water will splash, but oil will just be perfectly poured into another beaker, you see. So the Om is constantly flowing like that in its perfection. This is how they try and describe in words the primal sound. Sometimes they call it the unstruck sound. Perhaps you'll hear it sometimes in your meditation. I heard it in the crib. It's my first memory. And since then, I've had experiences of hearing it in my practice again and again. The Upanishads say to us that sometimes it sounds like a kettle drum at first, or other times later on, it'll sound like tinkling of a bell or the sound of a Bansuri flute, very high and distant, appearing on the right side of the head. So if you hear Om, and the Upanishads say that if you hear those sounds, that's the precursor to actually coming upon Om. Sri Ramakrishna, our great teacher, said, if you go across sand dunes, you hear a sound. And the sound gets louder and louder, right, as you get close to whatever's making that sound. You go over the last sand dune, there it is, the ocean, pounding on the sand. All the sound of the ocean is coming rushing off of that. So that's how meditating on Om, first you hear it at a distance, like go over many sand dunes means going inside, deeper and deeper inside towards yourself until finally you come upon this ocean of orotund sound called Om. And that's connected to the ocean of light, Brahman. So I got 4 words into it, and that's my explication. Parabrahma is Om, is what they're saying. It's that which exists, which is clean, which is full of wisdom, which does not have any drawbacks, which is without stains, which cannot be described, which does not have beginning, middle, or end, which is one and only one, which is Turiya, that means the only state of existence, which exists in things past, present, and future, but will never be divided by time. From that Parabrahma emerges the Parashakti, the female aspect. That is the soul, which is self-resplendent, and that's this quote up here. From that soul arose ether, from ether arose wind, from wind arose fire, from fire arose water, and from water arose earth. These 5 elements are ruled by the 5 Godheads. Sadashiva, Ishwara, Rudra, Vishnu, and Brahma are the 5 seats. They call it 5 seats of the goddess. She has 5 thrones, which she takes up. So those are, when she vests her consciousness in those great souls, Rudra, Ishvara, Vishnu, Sadashiva, and Brahma, then the 5 elements come forth. An entirely different look at origins of things than we have been brought up to believe in the West. It's like, for us, it would have to be, there was water. So water comes first, but water cannot come without air, and air cannot come without ether, and fire, and fire. So water is actually the 4th in line as far as the creative process goes. And first, you're going to have space. Spaces have to be infilled with air. When you have air, then you can have fire, isn't it? No fire without air. And when you have fire, like here on the island, then you have water. And then when you have water, you have earth coming out of that. So this is the ancient divine wisdom of India. It's called Adi Daiva Vidya, of how the elements originated, in what order they originated, and they have 5 deities that help them do that. We don't learn any of that. It's just like, oh, it's all of a sudden there. Well, it might have taken, billions of years to evolve it, but it's always there in Om. Time's an illusion there. Om's always producing them and pulling it back in, producing them, pulling them back in. Didn't they just say there's no beginning, middle, and end to anything? So you're going to find the disappearance of time inside of the word. Sri Ramakrishna said, I was meditating on Om one day, and I reached it. He said, I saw all the worlds coming out of it. And I saw them all being dissolved back into it. And I watched Om from a distance doing this process of projection, sustenance, and withdrawal. Projection, sustenance, and withdrawal, just like your breath. And I saw Om doing that, and I all of a sudden realized two things. I was the witness of that. And number two, no time was passing. Isn't that beautiful? So if you become the witness of phenomena, as I chanted at the beginning of this chant, you'll realize the illusion of time and the illusion of death. They're dreams you're having. And the mind is powerful enough, capable enough to project those dreams. And billions of people who have minds will believe those dreams. But none of them will believe it's time to wake up from that dream. See, time to wake up and be free. Free from all of these dreams we're having of birth, life, death, happiness, sorrow, virtue and vice, good and bad, war and peace, dualities. They're all dreams that the collective mind is having back inside of its subtle body, right? They seem real out here, but when you dream about them, like you dreamed about them last night, how real are they when they pass? And when you come to death, so-called death in this lifetime, how real is your previous life going to seem to you? See? All those things are going to go away, just like your breath. The last word you will ever say is, ah. The last sound you'll ever make. There will be no more sa after that. There'll be no more in-breath. The out-breath is the last thing she wrote. And you want to make sure that when you take that last out-breath, she appears in your mind's eye. Come, my child. I'll take you out of this world of suffering. I'll take you transcendent of the body-mind mechanism. I'll take you out of your small ego and immerse you at my feet of bliss. I just sang that. O progenitress of all penetrating wisdom, who flows imperceptibly as subtle spiritual current within the Sushumna and the subtle body. You hold all souls within you. Though often terrible, O great lady, appearing as the black night of incomprehensible void, you nevertheless hold knowledge and ignorance in abeyance and loose them for your purposes. Shri Devi Padam, may I always take refuge at thy feet. May she, the primal goddess, my refuge be. As Vivekananda would say in his poems to her. So where I ended up with there is from ether arose wind, from wind arose fire, from fire arose water, and from water arose earth. If you went back into you involved, forget about evolution for a while, try involution for a while. You have a place to go back to, which is called your refuge, your home of peace, they call that. Shiva, my home of peace. Now take your consciousness back to your home of peace and look at everything that's happening. I'm breathing in and out. As I breathe in and out, the worlds are projected from my mind into solid objects. And when I breathe back in, they're drawn back into my dreams into unsolid objects. And you're watching this go on all the time. So don't allocate your consciousness to matter. Place it back inside at her feet in pure conscious awareness. You are pure conscious awareness. You're not matter. And become realized of this fact and become an illumined soul, as my teacher used to say, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj. Become an illumined soul. So these five Godheads that rule the five elements, three of them are prominent because they do the the business of projection, sustenance, and withdrawal. That's Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. So that's become known in India as the Trinity. Our Trinity, a little bit different, but I'd say something that's rather connected to the Christian Trinity, can be easily connected is that basically there's a God which is under her behest that projects everything out of its great mind. That's called Mahat. And then there's a God that, once it's projected, steps in as Lord Brahma moves aside. That's called Vishnu. Out of Vishnu come the 10 avatars like Krishna and Ram and so forth. Then Vishnu takes over and sustains everything for 4,320,000,000 years. Is one day to him. And one night is another 4,320,000,000 years to him. So he's sustaining all of these souls that are mentioned here, billions of souls, for all that time. And in all of that time, they're taking births and dying, taking births and dying, millions and millions of times, as if time has no effect on that. It's just cycles, like your dreams last night. You may have been born in last night, lived and died inside of your dream. And then wake up here I am again in a physical body. And in 80, 90, 100 years, this will happen again, even on the physical level in my waking state. But it's probably more interesting to look at my dreaming state to see how many times I've taken on a body and how many times I leave it. It's almost like, how many times have I breathed today? 120,200, was it? According to this Upanishad. 21,100 times. So those breaths are almost like lifetimes, birth, lives, and deaths that are going on. These three keep up the job of creation, preservation, and destruction. And they keep up the three gunas. Brahma is Rajasic, Vishnu is Sattvic, Shiva is Tamasic. So on the cosmic level, these three gunas are going on. Gunas are hard, one of the special teachings of Vedanta, but they're very, once you know them, they're very helpful. To know why, for instance, I'm tired right now, or now I'm restless, or now I feel fine. Those are the three gunas happening. There's lethargy, and then there's restlessness, and then there's balance. You see? And you'll see everything here is going through those three states. Even insentient things are going through those three states. A river can be restless, a river can be swamped, blocked up and swamped, and not moving, and a river can be perfectly flowing serenely. That's the three gunas in the river. So nature has the three gunas, your mind has the three gunas, and you're constantly cycling between these three. And so when you do, you might want to say, oh, Brahma is being restless right now in me, you see, or, oh, Vishnu is being balanced in me right now, or Shiva is being destructive in me right now. He wants to dissolve everything. That's a good thing. The out-breath is him, see. It gets rid of poison, right? So you want these negative powers in you. You want to find them in her and use them. Positive and negative are to be used both, another one of the dualities. So don't shy away from Shiva just because he's the god of destruction. You want that destruction. Oh Lord, Brahma, will you destroy my negative thoughts? Sorry, I can't do that. Oh, Vishnu, will you destroy my negative thoughts? No, sorry, I can't do that. Shiva, can you destroy my negative thoughts? Easy. Gone, you see. So go to the Lord of destruction and dissolution. His consort is called Kali. Have you heard of Kali? Mother Kali is a very powerful goddess and being worshipped now since Sri Ramakrishna came to earth. So that's one sloka, 72. How long that was? So I read it all again? No. Basically, people are going, please don't. Uh, so basically we found out that what Om is and what it's not. Full of wisdom, drawbacks, no stains, beginning, middles, and ends happen inside of it. It's the word. The word is not love. The word is Om. Love comes later. And let's see if I had something to tell you about Om that could be helpful and chakras. So you might realize that we're going across this crown that way. We took up last week pretty much prana and mantra. The mantra, remember, was Ajapa mantra, not your usual mantras. So this is a filling out your knowledge of mantra that you have been using since the guru gave you your mantra. And then now we're pretty much concentrating up here, nadi, chakra, and Om is beginning to the Om is called the pranava, by the way, here in the Upanishad, called the pranava. So you can see how close it is to the prana, because it's named a lot after it. The pranava prana is named after the pranava. So you can see here that a little bit more information on the slokas, on the chakras, is being given to us there. Here's a quote from another Upanishad. The practice of yoga from a purely motionless position, free of all vibrations, situates the yogi in what is called the hollow stalk, known as moving inwards. The openings in the navel, the heart, the head, and the crown are penetrated in order. The yogi who is set on this course will behold the inner deities in 5 months. After Brahmanishta in 6 months, and reach Kaivalya at will. Well, some esoteric words there, but Kaivalya means freedom from nature. It's another very beautiful teaching, particular to India, is that you want to get beyond nature. So many people you're born in nature, you live in nature, you die in nature, you get disease in nature, you have old age in nature, and your body gets decayed in nature. So why wouldn't you want to get beyond it? So India comes forth with another one of those great non-dual teachings and says, we have a word for getting beyond nature. It's Kaivalya. It means you must separate yourself from it. You're too much involved in nature right now, and you've forgotten yourself. You're the witness of nature, but nature has convinced you that you belong to her. But what you really belong to is the mother of nature. So I'll coin a phrase here. You do not belong to nature, to Mother Nature. You belong to the mother of nature. She's transcendent of nature. The 5 elements should be obvious right now, right? From her, she came out of the Parabrahma, right? And out of her came ether, air, fire, water, and earth, right? And out of ether, air, fire, water, and earth came Sadashiva, Ishvara, Rudra, Vishnu, and Brahma. See the order of things? They're putting it in a very general way. There's the ocean of light called Brahma. When it breaks into waves, there's your Shakti, ordering the waves. As the waves come up off the ocean, the 5 elements, first one, ether, is born. You have to have space for anything to happen. Even time has to depend upon space, I've decided. So basically, space comes first. And there are 5 kinds of space in India. Not just, we only have one, physical, right? That's why people are imagining that heaven exists somewhere up in physical space, but it doesn't. It exists inside of you in subtle space. In deep sleep, like in dreams tonight, you'll go to heaven and you'll come back out of heaven and visit the physical world. But when you come back out, you think the physical world is the only ether, but there are 4 other ethers which you just traveled in. Prana is one of them. Thought is another, right? Chitta. And so all of this is coming in an order, right? So when she appears, from her come ether, air, fire, water, and earth. Then this is why I'm taking it through so many times so you can think it along with me and so you can see the cosmic order of things. First, there's divine reality, like Om, with no beginning, middle, and end, no drawbacks, no pros and cons, nothing, right? That's perfection right there. We call it Brahman here, crop of her crown. Out of that comes Shakti, just like heat comes out of fire. See? Shakti is one with Brahman, just like fire in its heat. Shakti is one with Brahman, just like water in its wetness. Shakti is one with Brahman, just like earth in its solidity. Who says this? Sri Ramakrishna, and the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna is saying this. So he's saying that these are apparently two, but they're really one in essence. So when she comes out as the heat that emits from Brahman's fire, because prana is basically all about fire, then, and so is the word, pranam, is all about fire. So when she comes out, she'll bring the 5 elements with her, and she'll have five gods with her that will help manifest the qualities of earth, air, fire, water, and ether. And people will develop senses and take on bodies in order to enjoy or suffer earth, ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And that's called birth, life, and death going on all the time in cycles. So this is a conclusion of a very long sloka as we run out of time here. That's sloka 72. So what we said last week was all about Ajapa mantra and prana, right? And then what we're talking about this week is practically do the chakras and the channels, nadis, they're called. Nada yoga is a great yoga you might have heard about. It's really the yoga that the yogis follow. It's created to sound, again, ether, sound and ether. And so all of this presided over by the divine being, the divine Shakti, whom we call Sri Sharada Devi. And let's chant to the goddess here to end this second class. Prakritim paramam abhayam vadadam nararupa janam pranatapa param sharanagata sevika toshakarim pranamami param jananim jagatam. O Mother Supreme in human form, granter of boons and of bliss, distress of our souls removest thou. Givest us contentment and peace. Jananim Sharanam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Paro Padme Toye Shritva Pranamami Mahur Mahur Pranamami Mahur Mahur. O Ramakrishna, teacher of all, O Sharada, goddess divine, in bosom holding those lotus feet, salutations to both, ever be of mine. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Hari Om, Hari Om.